Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and you're listening and or watching the Snobs Show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back to another week of the Snobs Show. We're going to be a little light on the and then some portion of the show. On Monday, we had the kickoff for WWDC with the keynote address from all of the top leaders and innovators at Apple. So on this show, we will spend the entire time covering all of the new features coming to software at Apple. If you are a Patreon supporter, you got a bit of the traditional show during our pre-show, which we call the Snobs Show. So if you want that type of content, you need to become a Patreon so you can hear a little bit of the extra content. So with that said, this whole show is going to be the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. And today we are talking all things WWDC 21 Keynote Address Recap. And man, is it a lot of information. The keynote address kicked off by Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, ran a total of 1 hour and 48 minutes. And that 1 hour and 48 minutes was jam-packed. So we have updates on iOS 15, iPad OS 15, Watch OS 8, Mac OS Monterey, and a slew of other services. So with that, let's start off with iOS 15. So a lot to cover. We'll start with FaceTime. So FaceTime is getting a bit of an upgrade. There's going to be a new spatial audio feature. We are also getting some mic upgrades, which includes two different versions. So one is voice isolation and the other is wide spectrum. Voice isolation is what you would expect. You're on your FaceTime call, you have tons of background noise. You can now isolate just the voice on the calls so you don't hear anything on the background. Or if you want to get more of the conversational feel, you can have on the wide spectrum where that gives you all of the kind of background noise in addition to the voices. Additionally, on the video, there are some new views. You'll have a grid view and portrait mode. Also, there's a new scheduling link that comes into FaceTime. And this link works on non-iOS devices as well. Probably the biggest thing that I think came out of the FaceTime update is a new feature called SharePlay, where in your FaceTime call, you can add in music, TVs, movies, and share your screen. Also, SharePlay has an API that is already integrated in quite a few of the popular streaming apps that many of us use. So FaceTime, what are your thoughts on FaceTime?
Actually, probably the most interesting thing to come out of FaceTime would probably be the scheduling link because, like you mentioned, you can actually share that link and it's a browser link. So if you have an Android, if you have a Windows device, you can actually technically be on FaceTime. Of course, you can't initiate the conversation,
But you can join it.
But you can join on your Android, on your Windows device, anything that can support a browser. You can now do FaceTime. The reason why that I think that is important probably is a year too late because over the past year, all we've been doing is doing Zoom calls, whether it be Facebook Live, however you communicate to your family and friends and loved ones. We've been doing it via video. Like I said, me and my family specifically, I bought a Facebook portal, got one from my father and sent it to him. So now that's how we communicate to where via Facebook portal. It would have been so much easier if I could have shared a FaceTime link to him, he could have went on his computer, boom, same thing, right?
Right.
So all that to say, I think this is probably going to be used the most to be able to share that link to non-iOS devices and get more people in the conversation. Again, a year too late, but we'll see, definitely how Apple starts to kind of even move even further into enterprise, because we are been using Zoom. We have been using Skype. We've been using new stuff when FaceTime has already been there. It'd have been nice for, enterprise who primarily uses Apple devices to be able to actually, conduct business over FaceTime versus going out to an external product or third-party product. Another thing that I thought was actually personally I enjoyed was the shared screen version, because I have family members, and I'm pretty sure most of us do. I am the IT tech guy of the family, so I've got parents and friends and relatives who always need me to show them how to do something, and I have to close my eyes and imagine what their screen looks like in order to get them to set up something, whether it be some, whatever the case may be. It'd be so much easier if I could, if they could share their screen with me, so I can actually see what's on their screen and better show them how to do something. So
walk them through it better. Yeah.
Right. So out of that whole, piece, I think those are two most important things that I saw that kind of popped up.
Yeah, I agree. I think the grid view may be helpful as well, because you can see everybody that's on the call
in an
equal size, similar to your Zooms or your Teams or whatever. Everybody has their own little block. You can see facial expressions and you can interact that way. But I think the share play is really pretty much a game changer, especially since they already have the API ready and it's already integrated with some of the big streaming sites already. So I think that is pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at the second thing, messages. So there's a new share with you feature. When I saw it, I thought, kind of like a bookmark. If someone sends you a message and you're like, oh, I want to look at that, I want to read that, you can basically bookmark it in a sense to go back to it later. And it takes you back once you create that share with you, I don't know what you call it, link, or I'm calling it a bookmark because that's what it makes me think of. You can go and say, Terrance sends me an article. It's like, ooh, that seems like interesting, but I don't want to read it right now, but I do want to make a note to be able to go back and take a look at it. So
and it's actually easier than that. You really don't have to create the bookmark. Any content that's shared with you that's other than text message, like actual words, like somebody shares a link, somebody puts a picture, somebody adds a calendar invite, whatever the case may be, you'll be able to go to that share to you with you portion and just see that, like, think of it like you opening up a email, right? And you're looking for an email. You can actually do a sort and say, look for email with attachments. And it'll show you all the emails that got attachments, because you don't have the time to go through each individual email. You can do a sort. I'm calling it a sort. That's not actually the word. But you can search by emails with attachments. This is kind of the same thing. You go to the share to you portion. It'll show you all the media, like Twitter. That's a better example. If you go on Twitter, you can go tweets. You can see tweets and replies. You can see media. So you can actually just see all the videos, all the GIFs, all the images. This is the same thing. And the cool thing about it is when you find something like a picture, something funny, something interesting, you don't have to then kind of go back to
the message. It'll take you to the messages.
You can actually reply right in the share for you section. The reason why this is interesting is because WhatsApp kind of has this. If you start a WhatsApp chat group, you can actually go into the specifics of WhatsApp and it'll show you all the media. So you can actually find that image, find that document, whatever the case may be, versus trying to thumb through the whole conversation. So this is, to me, this is just Apple catching up to some of the other messaging platforms out there. I'm pretty sure Signal and some Telegram probably has this feature. I think this is Apple just catching up.
Yeah, because you can do links, images, any videos, any content that you get in the actual messages, you can put in this share with you section. And also, it's built into the apps. So it was built into Photos, Safari, Apple News, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and the Apple TV app. Right. So there's this section is in all of those different apps. Through your photos
and you see a shared with, there'll be a share for you with you section. If you see a picture you want to reply, it'll take you right to that message where you can reply in line versus then having to go back to messages, try to find that part in the conversation to where you can respond.
Yep. And some new emojis. I'm not sure how many people use those, but at the opening of the event, instead of Tim talking to an audience of people, it was a collection of different memojis that he was kicking off the keynote with. And the other thing in messages, photo collections. So multiple photos that are in your messages appear as a collage or a stack of images, kind of like, think of old school when you actually had physical photos and you had a stack of photos, how you can just kind of flip through the photos. That's kind of what it looks like. In Message, you can just kind of swipe through all the photos. And you can save them to your library pretty easily. All right. That is it for messages. On to notifications. So notifications got a new design overall, and they have this notification summary feature where you can base your notifications on essentially like a priority, like what's most important to you goes directly into your notification summary. So instead of just swiping down, seeing a jumbled pile of notifications, it's more organized. And I believe you can set your preference on the way you see them. And that kind of flows into this new feature that they have called Focus. And the way they kind of broke it down is you can, instead of just doing do not disturb because you don't want everything coming in, you can set a focus. So say from that based on a time frame. So say if you work a traditional 9-to-5 job, if you say from 9 to 5, I only want to see things related to work. So any like work emails you may have on your phone, text messages from work colleagues, those would be the only things that you see during that time. So some of the basic ones I think it comes with is like work, fitness,
gaming, reading,
and you can do custom focuses as well.
Right. This definitely come in handy because do not disturb does not work. And I give you a specific example. It works, but not really. So when I'm exercising, I'm specifically looking at my screen. And I've got to actually set up an automation in shortcuts to where anytime I open the fitness app, like for instance, specifically the Fitness Plus app, once I open it, I've got an automation that runs that automatically turns on Do Not Disturb. Problem with that is Do Not Disturb works for notifications, like it'll mute any sort of audible notifications. But if I'm looking at my screen to exercise, I can see the notifications showing up at the top of the screen, and that kind of breaks my concentration to where sometimes I even want to reach up there and swipe
and see what's going on,
or just to get them out of the way. Now I'm out of the flow of my exercise. So it will be nice. It will definitely be nice with this Focus to where I can go into the fitness one and kind of either use the defaults or actually tweak it even more to where while I'm working out, whether it be a fitness app or doing something on my Apple Watch where I'm just walking or whatever the case may be, I won't get anything except for maybe a phone call from my wife. So I can go into the fitness one and say all notifications audible and visible with the exception of
this person or
mobile
that person.
Phone call from my wife, right? And that she calls me, then that's the only one that'll come through.
And it also for other iPhone users, of course, with iMessage, if you have a Focus turned on, it will alert the other person who is sending you the message that says, hey, this person has a Focus on.
So they may not get it. You may send it, but they may not get it.
Right. We talked about the notification summary and how that's essentially prioritizing what notifications come in, and it's a little bit more compartmentalized. And it's based, the summary is done. I'm sure there's some sort of algorithm and machine learning that's built into this that will start to get the flow of the user, and that will determine how things are prioritized in your screen, and it's not just kind of chunky way in there. All right, live text. This one was something. I guess it comes in handy for people. I was a little surprised they spent as much time on it as they did, but live text. So essentially, you can grab text from an image. So say if you are at a restaurant, you take a picture of the restaurant. Oh, wow, this is a great place. It's a good time. You can now go in using, existing gestures that are on the iPhone to highlight and grab whatever, say, the name of the restaurant is. You will be able to highlight that, copy that, and you'll be able to, do a lookup on it. You can use it in email. So that actual text from the image is now usable. Like you said, if it's a restaurant, throw it into lookup. It'll give you the location. So you can go if you need to call it for a reservation or see what the hours are or get their address, those type of things. So you can pretty much, any text that's going to be in an image, you can, and this is existing previous images and images going forward that you will be able to do this from.
Right. So this will come in handy a lot for me because I do this a lot while I'm driving. If I'm at a stoplight or at a stop sign and I see a contractor and plumber, electrician, HVAC, landscaping, remodeling, whatever the case may be, all of these trucks will have all their information. I'm always taking a picture to be like, oh, I'm gonna call them back, and then when you get to the picture, I either have to
keep toggling back and forth between
or try
the
to
phone
use my memory. Try to use my memory to memorize the phone number and then switch to the phone, which never works.
Yeah,
always
because you have to always go back. Yeah.
So this will definitely come in handy to being able to take the picture, grab the phone number, and actually call from the photo without even having to switch over to the actual call app. You can just use this live text, highlight the phone number, and on that image it'll say call this phone number. Boom, you're done. The problem with this is not all phones are going to get it. I did a little bit of research after WWDC. You'll need an iPhone with the A12 Bionic chip or better. So that's, I want to say iPhone 11 and up. Right now we're on the iPhone 12. So any iPhone that has the A12 Bionic chip. So no iPhone 6s, no iPhone SE. Let's see. iPhone. Yeah, let me see. I think let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I had to do another search, but yeah, any iPhones that were introduced around 2018 will have the A12 Bionic chip. So we're probably iPhone 11 and up. Sounds like it.
Cool. All right, a couple of other quick things. Spotlight gets a little bit update. You can now use the Spotlight feature to find photos. Also, in the photo space, the photo app got a little bit of an upgrade as well. There's a new animated title card. When you go into your memories, you can do videos or with music along with the images. So it has this new music and selection intelligence based on the images, the type of music, of course, from Apple Music, that would likely go best with this video montage of photos. It also has some pre-selected memory mixes that you can try out the different options of music. And the photos, of course, shift based on the tempo of the music. And there's, of course, a curated list of songs, of course, all coming from Apple Music.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you got a breakup and you got a whole bunch of pictures of your ex-boyfriend, you don't want that happy-go-lucky Apple Music
right
to pop up. You may want something a little bit more
somber,
rough. you know,
Some Adele, maybe. A little bit of Jasmine Sullivan, maybe.
or bust your windows out your car type music.
That's
Who
Jasmine
knows?
Sullivan. All right. Let's head on over to Wallet. So Wallet gets an update as well. This kind of goes into something that I don't know if it was it last year's tech predictions? But I think what's coming with Wallet is in line with what Terrance was predicting maybe last year. So in wallets, of course, you can put your credit cards in there, your Apple
Rewards, tickets. Yeah.
yeah. You can also now, for selected parks, I think it mentioned Disney specific, you can add your park passes to Wallet. For certain public transportation, your Metro cards or MARTA cards or Metro, whatever the different ones are, you can now add those cards to your wallet and you can swipe those as you go through the turnstiles. Also keys. So in addition to, I think when they brought the keys feature up last year, it was specifically for BMW. BMW is now rolling it out to more cars, to more brands of cars, and other car companies are coming into the keys family as well. In addition to, if you have a smart home, you will be able to use that, your Apple Wallet as a key as well. Hotels. And one of the things that they mentioned, I mean, I like to travel, and since we're now getting back to the point to be able to travel, for certain hotel chains, you can have your keys show up in your wallet when your room is ready. So when you go to check in, you could, in theory, already have your hotel key in your wallet. Another type of key that is going to be available, again, based on what company you work for, I assume this is probably going to roll out more as people start to use it, but your work badge, instead of keeping, because I know when I did go into the office, I would leave my badge in the car all the time. I have to run back out to the car once I got to the door so I could get back to get in. So yeah, you will be able to add your work badge to your wallet as well. So in addition to these things, ID cards is coming to Apple Wallet. For participating states, you'll be able to scan in your driver's license and you will be able to have that in your wallet. And they didn't give a specific date or time frame. They just said coming soon, TSA. So you will be able to store your IDs. I'm assuming maybe passports if you have global.
All right.
Yes, it allowed me to resume.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. I was just chit-chatting, talking away. Then you looked frozen. And then I was like, what happened? All right. So I'm not quite sure what the last thing you heard
we
from
were
me.
talking about wallet and ID cards. So the reason why that's important is because all apps, not all apps, most apps, like you mentioned traveling, you can go and open up the Hilton or the Marriott or the whatever app, and you'll have your room key, right? You can go to the MARTA in Atlanta, it's a MARTA, New York, whatever the New York is, whether it's San Francisco, you can open up their app and you'll have your digital key to where you can scan and get in and out of the terminals or whatever. The benefit of Apple Wallet is you have that pass or that access or that key, whatever it is, it's in the wallet app. So you don't have to, the problem I run into is whenever I'm traveling, right, I'm a Marriott person. I go to Marriott and they'll say, oh, you have a digital key. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I'll go to the Marriott, I'll go to the front counter, I'll get a physical key anyway, get up to the room and be like, oh, let me try my digital key. I'll open the Marriott app. Guess what? I haven't signed in. So then I got to go sign in. Then once you sign in, it takes a minute for the app to recognize I booked this reservation, and I got to wait for all that information to come into the app. Then they'll say, oh, you have a key. And then by that time, 10 minutes is gone, right? But
Right.
with the more services like hotels, like airlines, like your home, like your car, like your driver's license, that will all be quickly available by just opening up the wallet app and then selecting the right card, key, pass, whatever the case may be. Cuts out a lot of extra steps, and it just makes it easy, especially if you're going through a terminal. Like I said, I don't know what the pressure is. Well, let me rephrase. I haven't felt the pressure of rush hour in New York trying to get in and out of the terminals in the subway. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people behind you. It's like, bruh, hurry up. But you're sitting there at the terminal trying to clickety clack, open up the thing. With Apple, what they're doing a better job of is in iOS 15, it's making more of those passes available to where you can just double click on the side, select your key, keep it moving.
Right. So it just makes it, I think, a lot easier just to manage it. And, as I mentioned before, I am a paperless kind of girl. And as much that I can get rid of extra that I have to carry is all right in my book, because I don't have to carry all that stuff. I don't want to have to keep up with it. It's very rare to find someone who is not, doesn't have their phone with them, or, their watch, or some sort of communication device. So I think it's a good idea. I think, they're finally catching up. And I think the more people that do finally get on board will be better. They didn't specifically say, regarding the driver's license. I don't think they said which states
They didn't.
in the program, or the timeline that they have, or, how that'll work. But it is an option. And since they announced it, I'm assuming they already have some partners, because they would have had to do some sort of, test on this. So I guess coming, closer probably to the fall, we'll have that information as to who specifically is going to be involved in these activities. All right. Weather. So the weather app got a UI redesign, and they got better maps. They didn't spend a whole lot of time on this, other than
nobody
just
uses it.
Right. I use it to check the weather's gonna look for the day, but that's on the highlight. That's not even, I don't have to dig deep into anything to figure that out. So
right. And there's some other apps on the market that really do that deep dive if you care. Most people, for instance, like you said, I just say, hey Siri, what's the forecast for today? And then she, does the thing, and then that's enough for me.
Right. I just need to know if it's raining. I just need to know if it's going to be super hot, so I can prepare for my day, especially if I'm having to, go outside or anything. All right. Maps is back again, and they said it's better this time. So it has a new nighttime mode. Apparently the details on the different roadways and streets are more detailed, which now includes 3D renderings of landmarks. I think they use the Golden State Bridge in the demo. And the other thing is for transit. So you can track where you are on the transit line. When you hop off, it'll let you know which station you're getting off on. And the other thing that I thought that was interesting, I know specifically for me, because I rarely use public transportation, coming out of the underground space, it's okay, which direction do I go to get where I'm going? You can take your camera, do a little bit of
reconnaissance.
Scan the area, and it'll tell you which way to go if you're following directions on getting to a place. It'll tell you which stop to get off at. Then once you get out, you go up to the street level. do a little scan with your camera, and it'll map the buildings and such and tell you which direction you need to go on to get to your next location.
Right. Especially with the transit thing, somebody might be reading a book, you may be listening to some music, you may be off in deep space somewhere, and you'll get a tap on your watch, or you'll get a notification on your phone to say, hey, the exit soon, your stop is coming up soon, you might want to pay attention. Of course, you could say, well, you can just look up and see where you are, but people are in their phones like never before. So it's nice that your phone actually is like, hey, you might want to pay attention to what's going on around you, right? It kind of forces you, reminds you to actually look up to see what's going on around you. So that's definitely beneficial. I don't have a problem with maps. I use Apple Maps all the time, so I will appreciate the additional features in Apple Maps, especially when you're coming to a complicated exit, like in Atlanta, the most popular one is Spaghetti Junction. You've got, which lane am I in? When's the exit coming up? When should I get over? Maps do a good job of telling you what lane, but to be able to actually visually kind of see the lane you're supposed to go, that definitely will help out a little bit.
Cool. All right. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's it for iOS 15. Is there any particular feature that you are most excited about overall in iOS 15?
Most excited, probably the wallet, to see what all services, will get integrated in that and how soon, because we've been talking about wallet for a while now, but it's still, kind of restrictive in who's all partnering with Apple to actually push something out. So it'll be interesting to see going forward what companies, what services actually integrate with Apple Wallet, especially with driver's license. How will I be able to use that? Can I get into a club and just show you my driver's license on my phone, and will that be enough? Or, how will people, start to acclimate to that? Especially like if I'm out and about, and somebody needs to see my driver's license or a photo ID, will it be enough for me just to show you it on the screen? Or will people still kind of say, okay, well, you got your real ID? Or will people actually acclimate fast to where I'm showing you my ID on my phone and that's good enough?
Yeah, and my thing with the whole, driver's license is, so say you get pulled over for whatever reason. Am I going to have to give the officer my phone, or can I just hold up my phone and you see it? Because or you use NFC and it'll, they tap their phone or whatever, and just the driver's license information so they can go look it up or register it or whatever they do in the car. Yeah. Either
wasting
way,
all that time.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if I want you connecting to my phone in any sort of way. That may be, let me whip out this physical driver's license and hand that over.
You can see a time.
Yeah.
You can see a time to where your driver's license sits in your car. And if you need it for something like that, you'll have it in your car. But like you said, going to concerts, actually, going to a bar, and the bartender wants to see your ID or the waiter wants to see your ID, all you need to do is look up the dates. There's no reason to actually have a physical ID when you can show your phone. It'll have all the information on the front. There may be very few instances like voting to where they need to scan your ID. So it'll be interesting to see if the wallet will have the front and the back, because a lot of the rear, I can only speak for Georgia, but in the back there's barcodes to where the voting people, they actually scan that barcode. So it'll be interesting to see how that integrates with, voting booths, voting places, because, Georgia, we've got our problems as it relates to voting IDs. So that'll be interesting to see how they integrate that.
Right. All right. That's it for iOS 15. Let's head on over to iPad OS 15. All right, starting off with widgets. We have widgets that were introduced on iPhone that is coming in an expanded capacity to iPad. You now have widgets on the home screen, and they are scaled in a larger format for the iPad screen, since the iPad screen is larger. So you'll still have the same type of widget functionality versions on your phone. They've scaled it so that it fits the screen nicely on your iPad. And the other thing is App Library is also now on iPad. So they're closing the gap, it seems, between iOS and iPad OS as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of the things that they didn't do with the widgets that I wish they would have did was the live tiles. You have to actually interact with the widgets versus just getting an at a glance. And then for me to do anything, I actually have to tap the widget to actually open up the app. I wish I'd be able to do basic things from the widget, but this is a step forward.
Right. All right. The next biggest thing on iPad OS is multitasking. So it gives you some new view options for quick access, which are at the top of your iPad screen. The controls are also at the top of the screen. There's this new shelf feature that allows you to view all of the apps that you have open, all the open windows that you have, and you can easily toggle between them on this shelf instead of having to kind of, how you have to swipe up and kind of scroll through the different ones. They'll just be in a nice, neat, compact, what they call shelf, kind of at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that's similar to like a desktop. If you're a Mac user and you use the different desktops, which I don't think a lot of people use them. I use them a lot to where I can just swipe through the different desktops with the different groups of apps. So on one desktop, I may have Finder, I may have Podcasts, I may have Apple Music. I can swipe to a whole new desktop on my Mac and have Safari and Chrome open on the same one. I can swipe to another one, so on and so forth. So on the iPad version of desktops would be the shelves. So if you have multiple windows open, you can swipe to another shelf and then have a whole different set. So you that quick back and forth without messing up your current workspace or current shelf.
Right. And the way that this new multitasking is set up, you can have it full screen, like a slide over where you can kind of move it across, and a split view. But what was also neat, I think in one of the demos that they had like notes, and they were writing something, and then on the other side they pulled up like email. So you can, if you want to see a bigger view of the email, it will pop out and be kind of like overlaid on your split screen, so you can still email from there, read the full email, reply back, and then kind of swipe that back over so you don't lose your actual split screen. It's just like another pop-up on top of the screen.
Right.
Anything else with multitasker? Keyboard shortcuts. So for those people who use keyboards with their iPads, when you attach your keyboard, you can view all these different types of shortcuts that are available.
Hopefully they give you a shortcut to where you can, I know there's a way to do it, but it never works foolproof. Like for instance, our show, for example, the name of our show is Snob OS, and the way we spell it is the S in Snob is lowercase to resemble like Mac OS, iPad OS, so on and so forth. Whenever I'm starting a sentence with the name of our show, I don't want to capitalize the S, so I gotta tap the double shift and do all this crazy stuff multiple times in order
every time you want to type it.
Right. With the keyboard shortcuts, hopefully they add one in there that gives you to lowercase and uppercase to switch between them. So that would definitely, that's just a personal feature request. So we'll see if that comes out.
All right, that is it for that. I can't think of any new. We talked about the app library, talked about the widgets. Yep. So Notes. So Notes got a bit of an update as well. You can now add tags to your notes. And one thing that they really did a lot on the demo is this new quick note feature. And in my mind, I think of it as a sticky note. So you can kind of bring in, if you want to just say you're on your iPad and you want to write down a note, pick up milk, you can bring in a little kind of like a floating window of a notepad, and it's just like one little note. Write down your little note, write down your list, pick up milk, and then kind of swipe it away. It is, you can see all of the quick notes in the Notes app, but it's just an easy way just to kind of make, as it's called, quick notes, to jot something down really easily on your iPad. But that they spent quite a bit of time on that as well.
Because like you said, because people are going digital. Like I use my iPad a lot, and I'm starting to use it more in the place of pencil and paper. So to be able to quickly jot down a note, jot down, a phone number, an address or whatever, I'm trying to force myself to use my iPad and my Apple Pencil more than actually going to find a piece of scratch paper. So it makes sense for them to spend a lot of time on this because, again, I don't want to use paper anymore at all. At my current work desk, my current work day, I don't have any piece of paper laying around because I'm forcing myself to use my iPad. So this is a very nice added feature for those like me who are trying to ditch paper altogether.
Yep. And it's archived, so you can't, I guess you technically can lose it, but it's not like writing something down on a scrap of paper and losing that piece of paper or not being able to read what you wrote. I think it's nifty, it's handy, and of course all of your quick notes are compiled together in a quick note folder in the Notes app itself. What else do we have in iPad OS? Translate. I guess for those who use the Translate app, it now auto translates, and it makes the app and the interaction more conversational rather than just, I'm typing in something. Okay, what does this say? It gives you more of a conversational feel as well as writing. So now if you write something in a different language, it will translate that writing as well. They've improved on that. So that was it for Translate. What else am I missing? SharePlay.
I would say you got something about Swift Playground.
Oh yes, Swift Playground. So now Swift is the language used to develop apps for Mac devices. So now you will be able, with the Swift Playground, you will be able to code on your iPad for your app. So you can create a new app from your iPad, and you can submit the app directly to the App Store from your iPad. So it's closing the gap of having to have a full-blown laptop to do development. You can do it now with Swift Playground directly on your iPad.
All right.
And I want to say, I'm looking at the overview from the Apple website. SharePlay, and of course, what we talked about, and FaceTime, those changes. All that carries over.
15, yeah. Right. One of the cool things that probably you're going to get into a little bit later is the work across the different devices. When we talk about macOS Monterey, you'll be able to easily versus AirDrop versus email to yourself. Email into yourself, text messaging, pictures and things to yourself. You'll be able to just drag and drop those files across your different devices.
So on iPad, the Focus app or options are going to be on iPad OS. Photo collections, Memojis, the messaging stuff that we talked about, of course, the FaceTime stuff that we talked about, the scheduling, the mics, all that stuff that we talked about on iOS 15 carries over to iPad OS as well. All right, let's talk watchOS. All right, so watchOS has some new things coming up. I personally like the Breathe app. I use it, not necessarily just when it reminds me, but in my morning walks when I take my dog out to walk, I use it. So there have been some enhancements to the Breathe app that also includes some additional haptics, basically tapping on your wrist, letting you know when to breathe in, when to breathe out, those type of things. Also coming to watchOS 8, a reflect feature, and it's in the new mindfulness app, which is kind of like a way of, like, if you do like affirmations, if you're one of those type of people, that's what's going to kind of be in this mindfulness apps, just different ways to take a break, take a breather, to kind of get center yourself and calm and all that good stuff is coming to watchOS 8. The sleep app, it's getting a new metric to track, and that is of the respiratory rate. I guess it comes in handy, and maybe that came out of what all went on with COVID. Fitness Plus, there are some new workouts, new Tai Chi workouts, Pilates, and there is a new instructor on the scene, Jeanette Jenkins, who's quite popular. She has some new cardio and HIIT type of workouts. So I think when we talked about Fitness Plus before, I think I had just gotten it. And that was one of the things we talked about, is like, it's not a whole lot of instructors and different workouts. So they are bringing new instructors and workouts. And they're good. Yes. And they're also bringing what they're calling artist spotlight playlists. So certain artists, they named a few. I don't remember them all because I don't think it was really anybody that I listened to. But you could have a whole workout just with the playlist from one particular artist. New portrait watch face. So you will be able to have a better view of the watch face on your device, on your Apple Watch. So the picture, I think one of the things some people use photos as their watch face. It fills the screen more. It gives you a better, crisper view of the image, and you can use the crown to scroll up and down the image as well. Photos on Apple Watch gets a little bit of an upgrade. You now have memories, as you have on your phone, directly in the on the watchOS. It's easier to find photos. You can share photos easier, including GIFs. They made sure to say, and I always have to remind myself that the G is pronounced like a J. Easier when you can edit easier. So say if you're doing a voice text on your Apple Watch, you can now kind of move the cursor back to change or edit the text using the crown on your watch that moves the cursor. And what else was on Apple Watch?
Well, they got some, HomeKit stuff to where, if you are somebody interacts with your HomeKit, like for instance, coming up to your doorbell, ringing your doorbell. If you have a HomeKit compatible, front doorbell or front door watch, your watchOS 8 can make suggestions for others nearby. For example, someone rings your connected doorbell, you might see options like unlocking the door or turning on entry lights. So if somebody comes up, rings the doorbell, watch will recognize that and give you options like, do you want to open the door? Do you want to view the camera? Whatever the case may be, without you actually having to go to your watch, go to the home app, open it up, and then unlock the door or do whatever. It'll give you those suggestions on the fly.
And also home key. So wallet is of course on your Apple Watch. So with watch, you have access to your digital wallet that includes, in some instances, if you have a smart lock, your home key, car keys, ID, similar to what we mentioned before in the upgrades in wallet. That is also coming to Apple Watch as well. Your ID, your driver's license, credit cards, which are already on wallet, and your boarding passes, those types of things are already on there. But with the addition of the home key, car keys, and IDs, that is also going to be visible in Apple Watch. In Apple Watch and WatchOS 8. We talked about sending GIFs in text messaging. So the text messaging also gets a little bit of an upgrade as well. The focus filters that we talked about before, that's going to be on Apple Watch as well, which only makes sense because if you have your phone on whatever focus you're trying to concentrate on at that moment, you don't want to get other pings on your watch as well. So you can sync, what's going on in your phone, of course, what's going on with your watch. And we talked about there's a little bit more on we talked about mindfulness workouts. It looks like I don't think they talked about it in the announcement about an update to the workout apps, but
no, it really isn't too much to it.
It's pretty much just reiterating, because what I'm looking at now is just from the Apple website where they do a preview. Of course, Jeanette Jenkins is on Apple Plus, and the artist spotlight thing we talked about before. So some of those things carrying over across multiple devices. All right. So the last OS we're going to talk about today is the new Mac OS Monterey. And again, just a quick highlight: Focus, SharePlay, Quick Notes are all, as we mentioned before, in the other OSs. Those things are coming to Mac OS Monterey. But in addition to those features that we talked about before, AirPlay to Mac is finally coming to the Mac, so you can share what's on your phone, whatever you're AirPlaying from to the Mac. It gives you the sound from. So say if you're AirPlaying from your phone, it's going to go. You're going to have the actual audio from your Mac that'll be playing it. So the sound from the device will follow with AirPlay. What else with that? With the AirPlay, I thought it was something else with AirPlay. Maybe Terrance will chime in.
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
But while you look it up, not all these features will be on all the Macs that can get Mac OS Monterey. Live text and photos, improved city maps, detailed globe view in Apple Maps, natural text to speech, unlimited continuous keyboard dictation. You will need a M1 Mac in order to use some of that functionality. So be careful, especially if you're thinking about getting or downloading Mac OS Monterey, or you're looking forward to some of these features. Make sure that your Mac is compatible. Like, for instance, none of my Macs that I have are compatible because I haven't upgraded to an M1 chip. So hopefully, Apple, their next round of hardware will include more Macs with the M1 or the upcoming M1X chip. I think that's what they're going to call it.
Yep. All right. So I think that was pretty much it. Safari, I think is Safari further down? Yep. Safari we'll talk about that in some of the other services, but at a high level, Safari got a redesign, streamlined tab bar, and you can now organize your tabs better. And in this new thing called tab groups, we'll elaborate when we get a little bit further down to the Safari section. Shortcuts app. So the different types of animations that you can set up on your iPhone, you can now set those types of animations up on your on your Mac, of course,
Right.
compatible Mac. And
Right.
I know you use shortcuts a lot, Terrance, right?
Right. Because, well, not because, but shortcuts, I think, sounds like it's going to take the place of Automator on Mac, because you can use Automator to create these similar type of scripts. Shortcuts makes it so much easier than Automator, so much more visually, makes sense more visually to be able to drag and drop and add shortcuts. So they're bringing that to the Mac, and like I said, that'll take the place of Automator for the Mac. And yeah, I do use a couple of them. Like, for instance, I set some up to where message to remind them again to get their chores done. I've set shortcuts to remind me when products that I've ordered, tracking links. So I'll set up a shortcut to where I can just click that one button. It'll automatically go to the carrier website and show me the current status of that package. A couple other ones, like I mentioned earlier in the show, to where I run an automation to where when I open the Apple Fitness Plus app, it automatically puts my phone or my iPad into do not disturb mode. So definitely being able to create or discover those doing via a larger device, larger screen via the Mac. Definitely looking forward to that.
Cool. All right. And the last thing, and I think probably for me the biggest thing on macOS Monterey, is universal control. So what this universal control does, if you have an iPad, a Mac, and say an iMac, you can use the cursor, the mouse, and keyboard across all of the devices. So if you are working on, say, something or a design you sketched on your iPad, you can now use as long as it's in proximity, you can use your keyboard and your mouse to go over to your iPad. So using the controls from your laptop, you can control and work on your iPad, and you can drag whatever you're working on from your iPad to your Mac, from your Mac to your iMac, or whatever the case may be. It's not just, a large screen type of thing. And as I think Terrance mentioned a little bit earlier, if you're doing something on your phone, and instead of having to airdrop it to your Mac, you can just, with this universal control, have it in the proximity and use those controls to move it from your phone to your, say, your MacBook. So that was, to me, I think was one of the, probably one of the slickest things that I saw throughout the whole announcement, is the seamless transitions that you get from a single keyboard and cursor. So you don't necessarily have to have like the KVM switches to kind of switch across for different controls you may have plugged in. As long as they're in the proximity of each other, you can use your keyboard or mouse from one device on multiple devices.
Yep. Another thing that they're bringing to the Mac is share your screen. Like, for instance, I do a lot of Mac support in addition to iPhone support. So being able to make it easier for clients to show me their screen so I can walk them through troubleshooting. You can do it right now going through messages and using iCloud, but it's cumbersome. It's not readily available. What I mean by that, it's not readily recognizable. So it's not apparent how you do that. Now I can just start a FaceTime conversation while we're in the FaceTime conversation, similar to Zoom, similar to Teams, similar to even Skype. Now I can just do a share your screen option. They can show me what they're looking at. I can walk them through it.
Yep. So I believe that is it for macOS Monterey. All right, so that pretty much covers all of the OSs, the updates in the different OSs that were covered in the keynote. There are a couple of other items. I just kind of list them as services, even though they're, in some instances, I guess they could be considered a service, and some they can't, but that's just what I called it. So I guess we'll start with privacy. So there have been some privacy updates that are coming to your Apple devices in the Mail app. app, this mail privacy, I got production here, is protection. So mail privacy protection. And what this does is it hides your IP address in your mail. It hides your location. And it also hides the timestamp and info. So when you open it, previously, in some instances, you can see when a person opened an email that you sent or received. Now that information can be hidden as well.
Yeah, and that just goes to Apple's, thing to privacy, to where, a lot of these things to where you wouldn't think that you would want to keep private, but especially with the IP address and location, because sure, you just think you're reading an email from somebody who is sending you, spam or a newsletter or an advertisement or something like that. But when you actually click on that email, it gives the sender a lot of information, like your IP address, so they can locate where you are to be able to serve you relevant, air quotes, relevant ads. Also with your location, if they know you're in XYZ, and they can give that to their advertisers and say, hey, this person in this city, in this state, with this IP address, they can really find out who you are. And then that gives them more ammunition to sell to advertisers, so they can flood you even more with, information, with ads, with junk, whatever the case may be. But it's just amazing that all of this additional information can be transmitted just by you opening the email. So Apple recognizes that, and it says, hey, let's lock some of that down as well.
All right. In Safari, for privacy, your IP address is now hidden in Safari. So when you're browsing the web, your IP address won't be easily visible, and you will also get an app privacy report. I'm not sure if they specified during the announcement what comes in that app privacy report. Did you see anywhere where it gave any specifics?
If it's similar to the app privacy report in iOS, then it'll give you information like what this information is doing, what this website is doing with your data. Are they collecting your contact information? What are they actually collecting when you go to this website? Are they heat mapping you? Are they watching you where you go on the website? What side of the website you're clicking on? So I would imagine information like that. What are websites collecting while you're on their website? Are they collecting how long you're on the website? A lot of this information is useful to advertisers so they can find out what they can say. And I'm just using advertisers as an example because that's the most common one that I can think of. But, a lot of that information, again, you don't know is being shared. You just think they're tracking links, how many times you clicked on a link, but this information, there's a lot of information that you don't know that's being shared, that with Apple simply saying, look, here's a report of all the things that this website is doing or collecting or watching, that may give you an awareness. At the very least, you're aware of what these websites are doing. Whatever you do with that information is your business, but Apple's like, look, let me at least show it to you.
Right. So I'm looking on the developer page when it talks about this report, and you are correct when it comes to data collection, talking about the type of data that's being transmitted off of the device to any type of third-party partner, any type of analytics tool, advertising network, those type of things, the different types of data, name, your email address, phone number, address, any of those type of information that you wouldn't necessarily want to have
or just
kind
be
of floating
aware.
out there.
Like,
or you're aware of what, when you go to that site, of what they are collecting or what this site will be collecting from you.
A lot of people may not care, but if they need proof of what people decided to do when they found out what Facebook and all these other apps were tracking, a lot of people's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So you never know. There may be some people that may act on this privacy report when they get him, like, oh, I didn't know they was doing that. Let me not go there as much. Right. Or let me go in, privacy mode to search these websites to where they can't collect that information, as easily.
Yep. All right. The last thing in privacy, Siri. I think we talked about this before. There are more inclusive voices in Siri now. I think we called it some code switching, different voices. You can tell who the Black voices are and which voice they're using. As many Black people, we have to kind of code switch. Well, we don't have to, but there are some of us who do code switch based on, without even really thinking about it.
Right.
The audio that from Siri, so Siri's already listening, that stays on the device, and now it has on-device processing, so you don't have to worry about any audio
going to the cloud
or going anywhere. Somewhere else. It all stays locally on the device now, which makes it safer so that people can't access. Because I think we talked about a story a while back where people were being recorded, and there was a group at Facebook that's what their job was to just listen to the recordings from your account.
Right. And a lot of companies that issue devices to employees, a lot of the functionality, a lot of beneficial functionality is taken off of those devices via mobile device management platforms. Ask me how I know.
Right.
A lot of companies are snatching that functionality away because before, in order to do cool things like Siri, to be able to say, hey, call this number or set this new calendar appointment, a lot of that information was going to the cloud for processing. And that's a no-no for mobile device management. Look, we've got this specific crucial information that cannot leave this device. So the fact that Siri, for instance, audio is now staying on the device, on-device processing, that will enable companies to actually give some of that functionality back to their users.
And when you think about it, whenever you go to certain apps and it says access, grant me access to your mic, those type of things that are kind of always listening, those types of audio content will stay on your device and be processed on your device instead of going somewhere else. All right, the next service up, iCloud Plus. So the key features that are coming out of iCloud Plus, account recovery feature using trusted people. So if I designate Terrance as one of my trusted people, if I get locked out of my account, I can say, hey, send this to Terrance. He'll get the code, give it to me, and I can get into my device. Legacy contacts. It allows trusted people, certain individuals, to get access to your device when you pass away. There are people who, unfortunately, if you think about COVID now, folks who passed away, as much as we hold and keep on our device, as we talked about throughout this show, passwords with the password manager or, those type of things are all stored on your device. If you pass away, you don't know the passcode. Of course, your Face ID or any of your biometrics won't be on that device. This legacy contacts allows trusted people or family members who would get your device the ability to access access what's on your phone.
Right. And that's a very morbid conversation to have, but at the same time,
it's real life.
A lot of people don't have it, especially with couples, right? Because it's me and my wife. Well, I have her, if something were to happen to her, I have all her passwords in, our password manager, to where I may not have her phone, but I have all the passwords, passcodes to get into the phone, right? But what if something happens to me and my wife? We've got kids,
and I'm single, so who's going to?
But a lot of our information is digital. We don't have stuff written down like our parents and our grandparents do. So if something were to happen to me and my wife, or like you said, something were to happen to you, they may not have or even know how to use LastPass or password manager to get access to all our information. So to be able to automatically assign a contact give access to where at the very least they can get into my phone and then from there try to figure out how to do something. That's a whole lot easier than starting from square zero.
And you can't even get in.
No access at all.
Right. The next thing in iCloud Plus, private relay. So essentially, I think I did a little bit of research. The best way to sum up this private relay feature is, I call like a VPN plus. So during the announcement, they didn't use the letters VPN, but most people assume that's kind of what it was. But doing a little bit of research, this private relay uses a dual hop architecture, which means that both your IP address and the URL of the website you're visiting is encrypted. Right. So you can't, if someone's trying to track you or, using the advertisers example.
Or you think of like a Starbucks, somebody sitting in a car or sitting in a corner of Starbucks, and they have somehow got access to the Starbucks free public Wi-Fi, which is free and is public. But
people don't realize it. Oh, it's just Wi-Fi, it's safe. No.
Right. You being on your iPhone using this private relay, your IP address is encrypted, and if you go to a website, that website has become encrypted. Now that person sitting on Starbucks Wi-Fi can't get access to your information specifically. Probably the reason why Apple didn't say VPN is because VPN is a whole lot more than that. Mm-hmm. And all of that extra functionality that a VPN uses, I'm pretty sure Apple Private Relay does not. Mm-hmm. So Apple definitely probably doesn't want to be on the hook for calling itself this private VPN. Relay, calling it VPN, because then they'll be accountable or responsible for all the
if something happens. It's like, well, you told me it was VPN.
Right. No, it's not VPN. So they call it private relay to pretty much get themselves out of trouble.
Yeah, cover themselves. And the last big thing in iCloud Plus, hide my email. So this gives you the ability to protect your actual email address by giving you this alternate email address, this kind of like fake email address. But all of it, if you're signing up for something, the information feeds back to your primary email address. It's just a different address you can give to someone else who you're signing up for something, or somebody you don't want to have your actual email address, that they can still communicate with you, but using not your actual private email that you normally use.
Right. Think of Craigslist. Craigslist does this to where they anonymize your email address when you're talking to people, when you're interested in buying something, or on their classified ads, whatever the case may be. Additionally to this hide my email that Apple didn't talk about is they are giving users the ability to create a custom email domain. So right now, if you open up a Apple ID and you create an Apple ID account, they'll say you have to use, for instance, Terrance at me.com, or not even me.com, they don't use that anymore, at iCloud.com. Well, what if I wanted to, change it up and say Terrance at, applesnob.com, or whatever the case may be? Apple is giving you the ability to create a custom email domain name. And then if you share that with your family, like if me and Nica were part of a family, I could share that domain name with her via the family share, and then I could be Terrance at maxsnob.com, and then Nica could be Nica at Mac, whatever the case may be. That's a feature that iCloud Plus is getting that I don't think they even mentioned at the WWDC keynote.
I don't remember them saying that either.
Yep. So that kind of combats Google Suite, kind of combats Microsoft 365. To where, they're giving out domains to where, for instance, my family uses one. We use G Suite, but we only use it for the domain, right? But it was free. I did it a long time ago. So we have a family domain name where I can bring that over now, hypothetically, if this works the way I think it's going to work, I can bring that into iCloud Plus, since we already share iCloud 2 terabytes of
because you have the Apple One, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I already share domain. I already share iCloud storage space. Then I can actually then use the custom domain to create a family domain, so we can be Terrance at my family, or whatever the case may be, and I can share that with my wife. I can share that with my 2 daughters. To where when they get email addresses, they'll already have an email address that I can control.
Right. And I think there's a price associated with it. Yep.
Free. It's included. If you already pay for anything with iCloud Plus, they're not charging you any more extra.
So what is this? I see 99 cents per month for 5 gigabits of iCloud storage and support from home.
Yeah, if you're paying for that.
If you okay,
comes with that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And $299 for 200 gigabits and $999 for 2 terabytes.
Right. If you're already paying for that, you get all these iCloud Plus features.
Right. All right. Health. So they did do a whole health app update as well with mobility. So there's a new mobility feature in this where it kind of tracks your walking steadiness. So it helps. I think there's already the option for fall detection on Apple Watch. Is it on the phone too?
No, just the watch.
Just the watch. And so this is supposed to be an improvement in identifying risk factors for falling. And it kind of tracks your current walking gait because everybody has a different bit of a walking gait. And it comes with a mobility summary and exercises. So if it notices that your gait has changed or something seems a little bit off, it will in the app suggest different exercises you can do in addition to giving you a summary of I guess how many falls you've had or those type of features.
Yeah, this don't help if you're knock-kneed or pigeon-toed or anything like that. We ain't talking about that. You're talking about it's tracking and see, okay, something's changed where you're walking a little bit differently. You need to check up on that.
Right. Labs is another new feature. It's a simplified view of any of your lab work that you may get from your doctor. Also, trends is included in this as well. It's a health summary that helps address subtle changes in your health. So I think I mentioned before, think of it as if something is going on with your health, it usually isn't something that's acute onset immediately that you notice. A lot of times things can come gradually. So what this trends does is it monitors your health to say, hey, the first 3 months you're good, but this next 4th month things are starting to look a little bit different. So it just gives you the ability to possibly find health issues earlier as they come up. And you can also share this information directly with your healthcare professionals. And of course, it's all encrypted and it's all safe and protected. And the final thing, family sharing. So you can share your health data and health info with members of your family that you designate to have that information.
Yep. So you can check in on an elderly family member. You're concerned about your parents. You can request. they may not share it with you, but you can lovingly request that they share that info with you, so you can make sure they're okay. In addition to that, with iOS 15, you'll be able to scan a QR code from your healthcare provider and store your COVID-19 immunizations and test results securely in the health app. Again, that's if your selected provider actually works with the health app, which a lot of them do not. Well, mine doesn't, because I've checked multiple times. So they don't. But if you are one of the lucky ones to where your healthcare provider works closely, or your, whatever the company is, works closely with Apple and Apple Health, you'll be able to store that information in the health app as well.
And I see that trend, even though it's not very many healthcare providers that provide it now, I can see that as something that other healthcare providers are probably doing feasibility on, especially, again, lately it all comes back to COVID. Having this type of information, especially if you have a loved one that is in the hospital, now everyone can't go, only maybe one person, nobody can stay overnight. This is just a way to be able to see what's going on with your loved one without having to, physically be at the hospital. You can still be up to date on what's going on with your family member through your device.
Yep.
All right, AirPods. There were some updates to AirPods. Dolby Atmos. It has come to Apple Music. Notification upgrades, in your ear when you're listening, when Siri comes in, has someone calling, you get an email, you get a text, or whatever the case may be. There's some upgrades on that, and improved integration on the Find My app, which allows for easier finding of your AirPods. Anything else? I missed anything on that?
Nope, not really. It'd be interesting to see how they work with Dolby Atmos, because I think that is a licensing thing you have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I have to do it on my Xbox. When I got Dolby Atmos, they do charge you, I think, a one-time fee of $9, but then they give you access to that extra functionality. They haven't mentioned if that'll be the same thing with AirPods, having to pay a license or subscription fee for that.
Okay. Home. This is probably more in your domain. I'll just give some of the highlights of what I heard, and then you can give your home technical expertise. The API for Home and HomeKit, Apple is opening that up to other third parties to be able to have their devices integrate with the Home app. You now will have parcel detection. So if Amazon, Post Office, or anybody like that drops off a package, you will have that detection on and get notifications for that. It improves the different camera views, and also Apple TV. It'll now include multiple feeds on one screen. So say if you have 4 cameras set up outside your house, you'll be able to see all 4 feeds on one screen, as well as allowing you to control any other nearby smart home accessories.
Right. So they're just trying to mimic the closed circuit television that you see on the on the movies, where they nabbed a security guard out front. He's looking at his closed circuit television with the multiple screens. So now you can do that via your Apple TV if you've got compatible accessories, which that goes back to the API. I think they call it Matter now.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what that is just a way to standardize Internet of Things, specifically as it relates to smart home things like lights, cameras, smart locks, anything from sprinklers, right? You'll be able to standardize that to where you don't have to guess whether or not it's going to work on HomeKit, or is it going to work in Google Home, or is it going to work on Alexa, or is it going to work on Zigbee, or Z-Wave, or anything like that. Apple trying to standardize and group all of these and bring all of these other accessories together will make it easier for us to be able to pick products and not have to worry about whether or not it's going to work, provided again that these other companies actually join forces, which it looks like they will, because that's just more money.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, isn't it all about the money? All right. The last thing that they covered, developer technologies, because again, this is a developer conference, and a lot of developers come to find out what's new, how they can, create better apps for the new devices to make sure that they work with the new iOS versions. So developer technologies, there were a few new things in that space. API, which is a new object capture for 3D content creation. Swift, which is the programming language for Apple applications. It introduced something called concurrency, which essentially is a new way, a more efficient way to simplify your code within the Swift UI. App Store also is more in line along developer needs, meaning that it will include multiple product pages for different types of users. It will now have an in-app events section on the product page. So if you have some sort of event coming up, you can easily just click on that and it will pop out the details of the in-app event. And the last thing, Xcode Cloud. So for developers, Xcode is the tool to use to develop an app, whether it be for iPhone, iPad, Mac OS, whatever the case may be. What this Xcode Cloud essentially does is it makes it easier for developers to build and test their application. And one of the neat things that I saw is, of course, all of this is done up in the cloud, so you don't have to, once you run your tests, because if you have an app that's going to be compatible across multiple devices, iPhone, iPad, Mac, whatever the case may be, if you're running these tests on these apps previously, it's locally, takes up a lot of space, takes up a lot of CPU power. All of this now can be spun up in the cloud. So you can simultaneously test across multiple OS types and devices, and it gives you easy feedback of what passed, what failed. So it's really just a way to make development for developers to do the work that they do. And again, it leads to the fact of maybe not necessarily having to carry around big, heavy laptops if a lot of this stuff can be done in the cloud.
So is this Apple's version of GitHub, or is that different?
Say it again?
I said, is the Xcode Cloud Apple's version of GitHub?
No.
Oh, it's totally different?
Yeah, it's different. So essentially GitHub is just a repository. So It just houses all of the code. If you want to run it, you'll have to pull down the code and run it on your local IDE. And xCloud is just an IDE.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah. So TestFlight is what is the test tool that developers use to get their app to people they need to test their app. So it's a whole separate app called TestFlight. You push your app to that. You can identify which testers you want to test the app. And usually it's external. I mean, of course, you have internal testing, but a lot of times when you do your beta testing, it goes outside to people who aren't in your organization. So TestFlight works with this Xcode Cloud. Wow, tongue twister as well. So honestly, just overall, just kind of hearing, what this Xcode Cloud does, it really is a developer's best friend. It's going to make development a lot easier for folks who do app development.
All right.
And I believe that we've covered everything.
There's a bunch more stuff, actually. If you go to, we'll put it in the link in show notes, but if you go to the preview of iOS 15, and there's a couple other links to where they give you like the direct short versions of all the stuff that we just mentioned. We'll be sure to add that in the show notes, because there were a couple other things that they mentioned, but like I said, what we just mentioned was a lot, and they announced a whole lot more. So we'll definitely put the links in the show notes for those different previews for the different versions.
Right, because we gave a super high level overview of all of these things, because I know when I was watching the keynote, I was like, holy smokes, trying to live tweet it and keep up. I mean, the transitions were just so quick, so much information in an almost 2-hour keynote. All right, so I guess overall impressions on the keynote.
I'm surprised. Well, no, I won't say I'm surprised, but A lot of people will probably be surprised that they didn't mention anything about hardware, which, again, like I said, makes sense because this is a developer conference. So most of it is going to be software. You can make the argument that we have to create the software that's going to work on hardware. So you could mention the hardware at the developer conference, and I think Apple has mentioned hardware before
Yeah.
at previous WWDCs, and you add that with the hype that people are waiting for with these larger MacBook Pros, the Pro versions, with all the different ports that these high-end users need. Uh, Thunderbolt ports, HDMI ports, I guess SD card slot for your photographers who are editing, pictures. A lot of people are clamoring for these larger MacBook Pros with the
Me.
newer, yeah, with the newer M1X, I think is what they're going to call it. I think a lot of people are thinking or assuming that they were going to announce that lineup at WWDC, and they did not. So it'll be interesting to see when they actually do those announcements, when they make those devices available. My guess is they won't wait as long as the iPhone 13, whatever they call it, will come out, because I think they normally announce that in September. I don't think they're going to wait that long to announce a new MacBook Pro or whatever new hardware they've got coming out. So it'll be interesting to see when they do that.
They'll probably just do like a hardware announcement. I'm
Right,
thinking
right.
probably this is early summer, so maybe mid to late summer, but they have to have enough space between the fall announcement as well. So I'm thinking probably late summer, very early
Right,
fall.
right. So it'll be interesting if and when they do that. Other than that, that's it. Like I said, they did without mentioning any hardware, without mentioning App Store downloads, without mentioning any new iPhones, any new colors for any new devices. I think they, did a good job of devoting this one specifically to their,
The software.
iOS lineups. So
And it
there's a
was a
lot coming.
lot. And it was a lot. So I think it's probably twofold. One, they covered a lot of software in this keynote. And two, with all of the issues surrounding chip availability, just parts. It was, I'm sure, a calculated decision to say, you know what, we're just not going to say anything related to hardware. We're just going to keep it focused on software because this is developer conference, and we don't want to, shoot ourselves in the foot and promise something that we can't deliver or we're not quite sure of at this particular moment.
Yep.
All right, so I believe that wraps up today's All Apple show. Don't forget to download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can definitely engage with us on the social media outlets. We are at Snob OScast everywhere, including Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Definitely watch us on our YouTube channel at Snob OScast. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so that you get the notifications when a new show is posted. Also, you can feel free to leave us any comments or suggestions if you have any thoughts on this week's episode, particularly as it relates to anything that was announced at WWDC. If you're attending any of the other sessions and you have some feedback, definitely let us know. You can do that by going to our website, snoboscast.com, and also by sending us over an email, snoboscast@gmail.com. Also, you can support our show in two ways: by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/snoboscast. And for $5 a month, you get access to our pre-show content, access to our live show taping, and also access to our chat community. The second way you can support the show is by sending us over a little love offering at PayPal, which you can do by going to paypal.me/snobos. And that wraps us up this week. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Peace.
Bye.